Hello everyone and welcome to Beyond SEO with Growthack.io, where we look at what really drives growth for brands. From search and content to product data and strategy, we dive into the ideas and conversations that go way beyond SEO. I'm Glenn, and today I'm joined by Thierry Ngutegure from Six Chillies. Hi Terry, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, not too bad. Thawing out. It's a bit cold, but you know what? I need to stop complaining about that. I'm a northern lad. I should be used to it at this point.
I always say whenever it's cold, I always call it chili con carne outside.
Chili con carne.
Sometimes people don't get what I mean by that, but I'm just like, I always like to say.
I got you. Don't you worry.
Really excited to be having you on today because this has been long in the making.
It really, honestly has. It's shamefully long, and I apologize. And I also say, thank you so much for having me down. Honestly, I truly appreciate it. I've seen some of the content that you guys have been producing, and it's honestly top notch. So it's a pleasure to have my face even near it.
Yeah, I'm sure Kevin will enjoy the episode as well because he's not here today. So.
Yeah, it's his birthday today, I think. So I think we'll let him go for today. That's okay.
Yeah.
But it's a pleasure to be here.
No, that's awesome. So we wanted to just chat through on the topic of essentially turning data into storytelling.
Yes.
Essentially, which is something that obviously is really useful for a lot of listeners because your background, when looking at your resume with the places that you've worked at, it's really, really impressive.
Yeah.
But before we get into the really fun stuff, if you could give a brief introduction to yourself and your background.
Yeah, sweet. So, my name is Thierry. I am the head of data storytelling at Six Chillies. In terms of my background, it is, I've not took a conventional path to my career at all. I don't think there is, because I feel like we live in an era right now where like some of the jobs we have now didn't even exist at the time, right? So most of us had didn't know that marketing was even a thing at that at that age, or is an option whether you're in a school or whatever.
Felt very obscure, like early on.
So we kind of almost stumbled into it. Like the amount of people I've said like who are in SEO who are like, I just stumbled into it. I'm like, fair play. My path was unconventional as well. I actually studied biological sciences, focusing on immunology and genetics at university. And then I got into kind of like, I realized I really have a love for people and understanding why people behave the way they do, why we make decisions the way we do, and how we can maybe help people make certain decisions or take certain paths with certain techniques. And so then I got into like market research and consumer research, specifically focusing within the student demographic to begin with. And then I got my first break into agency world, where I kind of worked within digital PR as a data journalist. And I think that kind of brought the two worlds together, that kind of analytical mindset from my degree, but also that love of people and trying to understand and tell stories to people as a way of making decisions or choosing certain circumstances.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, really looking forward to it. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask was on the concept of turning data into stories. And I think you said something previously before where, I'll try and quote it, where it's basically saying the way you work is focused on obviously turning overwhelming data into clear stories that drive decisions. And I wanted to ask, in terms of that statement, when did that become something that you really kind of abode by or followed? Because I know from my experience as well, whenever people who dabble in data, but they're not really in the thick of things when it comes to data, it can be a little bit tricky to adopt that as like a way of, behaving when it comes to interacting with data. So for yourself, when did you think you started really adopting into that?
Yeah, so I think it's when I entered the world of digital PR, to be honest with you, because digital PR for me is the art form of storytelling, whether that be to a journalist, an audience, or to a client in some way, shape or form. So trying to form an understanding or a story about a brand or a product or a service within the mindset of the individual you're kind of targeting. And so then that culminated with, over the last maybe like 8 years, 10 years, we've been told that data is the king and queen of everything, right? So collect as much data as you humanly can and it will objectively tell you exactly where you need to go. But what's quickly happened is this gap has occurred where the individuals who are kind of technically involved within the data are on one side, and then you have the individuals who want to make decisions or tell stories about the data on the other side. And that gap's actually grown over time. And in my honest opinion, I thought it would shrink because with more data comes opportunities sometimes for people to maybe take that little leap and go and look at it and play with it and understand it and critique it, most importantly. But actually what it's done is it's created it's made us feel a little bit overwhelmed, because as it's stockpiled, we've kind of gone, right, well, what do I pick up and put down? There is so much of it. Where on earth do I actually start? And so then I guess the world of digital PR in terms of like data-led storytelling, and how journalists kind of prefer telling stories through a data lens, allowed me then to go, actually, in this stockpile of data, if we are trying to tell this story about a brand, service, or product, I think we should pick these 3 things. And so then that world of kind of digital PR, SEO, content, all kind of gave me that confidence to be like, actually, I think there is a opportunity here for me to sit in the middle, because I call myself the worst analyst, because I'm not purely technically capable, in my honest opinion. I have a bunch of gaps from a technical perspective. But I'm also not maybe the individual on the other side who's an epic copywriter or can put some of the most compelling content together. But I sit in the middle and I bridge those two things, and I call myself a data translator. Ultimately, I help individuals cross that bridge regardless of which direction they're coming from.
Yeah, no, that is such a good point, because like what you said before, now that there's so much data, you're not struggling. If you're, say, like a stakeholder or an SEO or a paid person, whichever department you work in, when it comes to marketing, you've got so much data at your disposal. But even from my experience, I've seen there's times where clients will get given, say, reports or dashboards where there's metrics or specific things where it's kind of like, do they really need this specific thing?
Yeah.
Then that's when
it's like 16 pages long and it takes like 5 minutes to load and then crashes.
Yeah. So then it just gets to the point where a lot of the stakeholders, more often than not, they just want the kind of top level stuff.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to be overwhelming them with that kind of information. So that makes sense for sure.
Yeah. And I guess with the whole kind of data-led storytelling lens, I guess, especially that bit about like feeling overwhelmed and not being too sure as to like what to produce for a certain stakeholders, for example. I think that's a really important piece when we're talking about things like reporting. I stole a framework at Six Chillies from Simon Sinek, and he has this like who, how, and then like why or what. I think I think it's what. Yeah, sorry. And the whole premise of this is like it's a way that businesses should orient themselves within the world. So like who you are should be at the center of that circle, and then it's like then what you do, and then what, and it kind of goes out like that. But then I stole that from a perspective of like, how do I tell stories with data as a type of framework? Because if the stockpile of data is like overwhelming, so is the frameworks or abilities to tell stories is almost endless. So then how do you just distill that? And so then the way I've kind of taken that Simon Sinek kind of golden circle rule is then that framework, I kind of go like, okay, so why should I care? Okay, so my why is almost like, why should I care? So if you're producing this report for a CEO or someone in finance, the story of like, why should I care should be almost tailored to them at that point, right? So why should I care that we're talking about this? Okay, and I give you a statistic of like, okay, well, clicks are down by like 50%. That's why you should care. And then the context, then the next step is then like how. So how have we got here? And so then you go, well, actually, here are the things that have led to us kind of sitting here. Here is the context to our competitors. Is it happening to just us, or is it just happening to our sector, for example? Is it something that we should worry about? And then it's the what. So then it's like, well, what do you want me to do about it? So that's the action piece, which I think a lot of people forget. And that can be super tailored to the individual you're talking to, because if you're talking to your CEO versus someone from head of finance, the what can really orientate action depending on like their title. So from a finance person, it's like, well, what do you want me to do about it? Well, I need more budget. Okay. Like we need more money to do X, Y, and Z. Or I need you to back me on this idea. You might not even need any action. You might just be like, I want you to accept the fact that this is now the new norm because something has changed. So I don't actually need you to do anything bar agree and understand. From the CEO's perspective, it might just be like, the what might just be like, I just need you to know that this is happening, by the way. These are headwinds that we're facing. I just want you to be aware. Or I would like you to unlock more resource within the business so I can do X, Y, and Z to be able to fix this thing. So then it gives you a bit of a framework to structure your data and think about it. And it's the way like we pitch ideas as well. Like if we're pitching any kind of data-led ideas, it's like, well, why should I care? How did we get here? And what do you want me to do about it? And it consistently allows you to communicate data in a way that is structured, you don't feel overwhelmed. You don't have 15 slides on like a bunch of data where you're like, you've completely lost me at this point, right? And it just gives you a little bit of a framework of like the mountain of data that you have and the story that you need to tell.
That's really useful. And I think you can take that framework and just apply it to other aspects of what you do within marketing as well.
Yeah.
Because that's something that when I was getting into SEO for the first time, whenever I'd run through tasks or discuss a specific goal that I'm trying to achieve, say I'm explaining it to stakeholders. And when I was still new to SEO, I would struggle to kind of bridge that gap of like, right, I fixed something, but tying it to like why the stakeholder should care. So kind of following that framework that you're explaining, showing that, yeah, this is useful for this reason to make the correct stakeholder care, can obviously help with that buy-in depending on what it is you're trying to get from the stakeholder. So.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times we actually stereotype stakeholders a bit too much, right? So what I mean by that is, if I've got an idea, a creative idea or a creative campaign I want to run, more time than not, when I am pitching to a creative director and then someone who is like the head of finance, we actually dilute it based on the individual we're speaking to, right? So the creative director, you'll go, here is the all singing, all dancing, like pitch and story. Hey man, it's going to be super cool. And then we don't give them the mechanics, the financial mechanics of how, how much is this going to cost? What's the lead time? Do you need any resource, etc., right? And then vice versa for the finance individual, where we go, actually, I've got this idea, it is possible by these mechanics. And then you actually cut out the creative part for them. But they are just as creative or want to be involved in the same manner. So then hence why we've kind of implemented that framework, because it allows the finance person to also be won over by the story of the creative, but also be the devil in the detail when you say, so what? So what do you want me to do about it? And equally with the kind of creative director, like the nuts and bolts also matter, because they could actually be like, I think that's really creative, but actually, is it the best use of our money? We could do this other creative thing, which is like a third of the price, but twice the impact, for example. And then it stops you kind of stereotyping sometimes. Some people saying, actually, no, the CEO just wants to see like 2 metrics. But I'm telling you, man, the CEO is just as excited if you come to them with a creative idea and there's a lot of energy and you've given them a lot of context, and then the so what is tailored to them. I think, I don't think we should be diluting too many messages, man. So people are excited too,
Yeah, that's such a good point. That is such a good point, because I think, like what you said before, you can potentially miss out on an opportunity of selling something if you miss out one aspect of things. So like, if you're trying to get rid of the creative when you're speaking to someone who's a bit more numbers focused, you don't know if they could be inspired by that to give you budget. So yeah, that's really important.
Absolutely. And people are more than their titles. Like at the end of the day, that CEO, the person who's in finance or the intern, when you run into them in the cafe or the local brunch spot, they're just Tom and Jenny and so, do you know what I mean? Like they're just as excited as well. Like you just never know. And I think sometimes by the nature of your title, we can just dilute our messaging and our story.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You touched on at the very start, like your background in terms of how you got into data, and I wanted to get into that a little bit more as well. So obviously you said your path to getting into data was not very conventional.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, in terms of getting into data and analytics, what were the key pivots or turning points that got you from, say, research and I suppose learning roles into that sphere? Because it's quite a difficult thing to get into as well.
Yeah. So I think the most important lesson, or the thing that I did that kind of led to where I am right now at that point, was when you walked into an agency back then, your SEO team sat over there, your client services team sat over there, you're paid. It was borderline like the Great Wall of China running through the middle of these departments. And I think data allowed me, so coming in as a data journalist, I quickly realized that the skill set that I had from market research within the student community wasn't up to scratch or speed in comparison to what people were doing from an analytics perspective, or understanding consumer behavior, understanding how people are behaving on web, so like web analytics, or even just the market research of putting together a really decent piece of research that, helps people understand why this particular group is the same as each other, but distinctly different to another group, for example. and really that kind of technical piece. And I guess what that pressure meant that I had to speak to other people within the agency because they had the skill sets. And I was like, well, Malcolm over there knows pretty much everything about SEO that there is to know. I'm going to sit next to Malcolm for a little bit. And when I've got the spare time and the resource. And so then going around and sitting next to individuals who were technically excellent allowed me to kind of unlock those skills, because inherently people are really nice. When you actually think about it, like it's only like external pressures, I believe, that kind of make people kind of deviate from that path. But if you come to somebody with empathy and like, can you help me? I've seen that you're the best at this. No one will go no.
Yeah.
Like, because you've led with the right foot, and also inherently people like to be made to feel nice as well, right? So you've led with that kind of empathy. And so then I just did exactly that. So I went to the analytics team. At the time we had like a really early on, so this was at J-Wing, they had like an AI team there, and there was a lady, I forgot her name, she had a PhD, super, she led an incredibly smart team. And so then I would just go to their meetings as well, and I'd just sit in the back because it was in the kitchen. Like,
okay.
Yeah, so they would be having their team meetings in the kitchen, and they'd be presenting stuff that they've done. And I'm like, this is super cool, like where they've used like machine learning or modeling to help. I think at the time as a case study was like dominoes. And I was like, that is cool, man. That is really smart stuff. And I'd just sit in the background, and then afterwards I would have a conversation with the individuals to be like, hey, like, what content would you recommend? Is there any books I can read? Do you guys have internal training? Which every team typically does, right? So you bring in a junior person, there'll be some sort of training. Can I sit in the background of that training since it's happening anyway? Can I just come and join? And they'll be like, yeah, cool. I mean, if you've got the time and the resource, you can do that. And I'm like, yeah, I'll make it. That's absolutely not a problem. And so then that allowed me to pick up those kind of medley of skills. So just as I said, like I'm the worst analyst, it's because I'm not really singularly deep on one piece. I've been blessed with a career where it's allowed me to see many things from many different people, and I've kind of collected a couple of coins from everybody and picked up certain things, and then that's where I kind of funnel it into that storytelling aspect of like, why should it matter to the people who are either telling stories, setting a direction, or putting a strategy together.
No, that's really great. And I think that's one of the things where, especially if you're in a big company or you're in a place where they've got a lot of resources, I think it's really important to not isolate yourself within a specific department, like what you were doing before, looking at the opportunity where there's these specific departments that are doing really great and there's some great people in there, utilizing that to essentially upskill yourself as well and pick up some nuggets like what you were saying before to essentially carry on to what you do in the future. So that's something that's really, really useful. And I wanted to segue into something else that you obviously did in the past. And when I was diving into your work and everything that you've done before, I didn't know you were into stand-up comedy. That was something that you've done in the past.
Oh, yeah. So I realized quite early on that I loved like speaking to people, and I love people, and I said this kind of like consumer behavior, human behavior in general, like really intrigues me. But I was afraid of speaking in groups. Like there was a certain group size where you kind of go, oh my God, I'm literally naked up here. Anybody could judge me. Someone could throw something at me, right? And I think everybody kind of resonates with that. There is probably a group size where everybody's like, ooh, this is intense. I mean, even Chris Brown doing up 30,000, there's probably like 30,001 and he's like, oh.
Yeah, just
and
pass
it's
out.
nervous. Yeah. So then I wanted to kind of overcome that. Because if I was wanting to go into this whole like storytelling thing, or like I really wanted to be the person that like went to pitches, for example, and then was picked to kind of speak, or wanted to do conferences and things like that, because I thought that was really, really quite cool. You got to travel the world and speak to a bunch of different people. I needed to overcome that. And I think I've always been a person of like, I take the harshest approach to fixing anything, in my honest opinion. And so I could have just gone and, done a couple of courses or spoke to a couple of people, or maybe got a mentor. And I just thought, like, what is a version of that makes you feel the most naked, but you can learn the fastest? And it was stand-up comedy. And there were a couple of like open mic nights at university and things like that. And I just signed up to them, and I said, "Well, cool. Like, we'll rock up, see what happens."
Just throw yourself into the deep end.
Yeah, I'm like, listen, I'm by no means funny at all. Outside of like my sister, like my mum and my wife, maybe. Who my wife probably still thinks I'm not funny at all. But I thought, let's go for it. And even preparing that material, like I didn't prepare it to like maybe like an hour or so beforehand. And I had like an iPad on stage because I was like, well, because I'd not prepared it, I didn't have that recall to mind. So I was kind of like, but I used it as a way of saying, oh, I'm going to read some tweets off it, for example. And so then, I did a couple of those, and it was like you walk off stage sweating, shaking, like it is absolutely terrifying. But once again, it is the quickest learning curve, because what I then did with that is I got the content, so the video off that, and I saw something on Instagram at the time, which was like, if you want to be a better speaker, watch your whole thing with the video and the audio.
Oh, that's tough.
It is rough.
That's
it
tough,
is honestly not for the faint of heart. Then watch it with no audio, so to look at your visual cues, and then watch it with like listen to it with audio only, and then it allows you to pick up a bunch of different things. So I had like crazy pauses, mad takes. I would be like filler words and things like that, and you become like hypersensitized to those things, and then it just allowed me to critique it and go through it. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't become a career. I'm no Kevin Hart, but I did. I did it a couple of times. I think I did about 3 or so times. But it allowed me to get that instant feedback that I needed, and so then I can kind of try and hold my craft. I'm completely still terrified by being on stage, but I walk on there with a level of confidence. Because actually what I realize I'm there to do is it's an energy exchange. I've realized some of the best speakers come on stage and we mirror whatever energy they've just brought on. And as soon as I clocked onto that, I was like, well, if I walk on there confident, happy, funny, just smiling, you can't turn down that energy. And it's an energy exchange. So I'm here to give you that energy, regardless of maybe the little critiques I've made about what I'm doing. So I implore anybody to do it. You honestly do feel naked on stage and like everybody's looking at you. But once again, becoming better is, what route can I take to get the fastest feedback?
Yeah, no, that's very useful. And it got me thinking about another scenario where like I was obviously buying a car, and the person who was obviously I was buying the car off, I was asking them like, oh, so what do you do like aside from this? And said, oh, I do IT stuff as well. And he said that one of the things that made him stop doing IT, he was doing consulting, was that anytime he was doing like pitches or presenting, he would start shaking and he would just forget his words. And I think I was saying to him like, oh, have you thought about doing it again? And he said, no, I just can't do it. And I think the example that you gave of essentially just kind of desensitizing yourself to it, because I think you're always going to have the nerves, I suppose, the discomfort of actually, speaking, because it's not an easy thing.
No, it's not.
But I think to shy away from that is potentially stopping yourself from upskilling to something that's really useful as a skill to have.
Yeah.
So really,
and do you know what it is? Like when you feel nervous, it means that you care.
Yeah.
Like if I'm honest with you, anything I've ever done where I don't feel nervous, I therefore don't care about it. Like it's not, like it means it's not, I'm not looking to deliver my best in that thing. So I've always taken nerves as like the reason I should do. So I always say like I'm always in the pursuit of imposter syndrome. The moment I don't feel it, I think I'm in the wrong place. So whether it be you're on holiday and the local pool guy goes, hey, who wants to do this? And this is like, oh my God, this is terrifying. I'm the first person to put my hand up because it's terrifying. Complete pursuit of imposter syndrome, I think, is an important thing.
Yeah, that's a really useful mindset to have. Another thing that I wanted to get into as well was, obviously I was saying before, like your resume, that the place that you've worked is really impressive. Yeah. It's like almost eye-watering. It's just like, wow, this is really, really, really good. And based on the places that you've worked, how would you say the brands that you've worked with, what are the common patterns that you've seen when it comes to how they use and misuse data, and how can a brand who's looking to make the most of the data that they have actually make the best use of it? Because obviously I know you were saying before, sometimes there's things like interpretation being an issue, but based on the places that you worked and the brands that you worked with, what are the kind of commonalities around misusing or using data?
Yeah, so one major thing that I pretty much see in most big brands is there comes a point where you will start a brand, product or service, and there'll be individuals sat around the table. So there is only a handful of you. And so then the way you communicate and understand things about your audience is super easy, because I can sit across the table from you and go, hey, look at that, someone like this, we've got this many video views, okay, amazing. Well, these people have then gone on to purchase and they're consuming this content, fantastic, so therefore we should be writing this type of content, and then therefore our customer journey looks like this, and therefore here are the touch points that we can have, fantastic. And then you become a brand, product or service that has like 4,000 people. Now what happens is the SEO, the social team, organic social, have one understanding of your audience, because these are the people who are coming to us and interacting with us from a social perspective. The SEO team has a complete other understanding of their audience. This is how people are kind of behaving across the website. Here are the things, how they're, internal site searches, how they're consuming content, kind of from a keyword level as well, like what are we ranking for? And then you've got other teams as well. So like your even your paid social will see a completely different audience to your organic social. And so then what you end up having is different strategies built for different audiences, because they sit in different teams. And so then there is this like fragmented thing where it's like you're all kind of running in different directions for different people, even though you've got the same product or service.
Yeah, that's confusing.
Yeah. And it's just because you've just not spoke to each other. You've just gone like, well, who are we targeting for this? Well, for us, it's like this individual. For this team, it's this individual, and the teams just don't speak to each other. That's ultimately what's going wrong there. And it's just, you get in the thick of doing the do. You report to your own team, you report to your own manager, you speak to yourself, and you rarely meet. There's rarely like an interdepartmental exchange of knowledge. And I think that is why I guess insight and data teams have become so important to build as quickly as possible within a business, to try and firstly centralize that understanding, but also democratize it. So create a situation in which it can be self-service in some way, shape or form. So individuals can come and go, I would like to glean knowledge from another team's data, but also holistically the entire business is understanding of data. So that's definitely one thing. Another thing I would say would be a confidence gap within like how they use their data. So confidence gap meaning you get to a point where there is a great understanding of your audience. You've collected all of this data about how they behave, how they consume, who are they in the world, who are you to them. But then the teams who are actually audience facing seem to come to me and go, "Oh, Thierry, can you just double check this? I'm not a data person. So I don't want to step on your toes." And that confidence bit, I'm not a thing, is actually quite detrimental to what you perceive about yourself, but also how you then show up in the world as a brand, product or service. Because I think that when you give people the confidence to critique data specifically, because that's the confidence I really want to give people, you operate on a different level of understanding, and as a brand, product or service, you kind of orientate yourself in a much stronger way. So what I mean by that is, when I produce a report or a piece of insight and I give it to stereotypically non-data people, they take that as gospel.
Yeah. 100%.
But there is a bunch of bias that I might come with. I might have put it together with an intention of, I want to steer you in this way. The way I've collected it might have underlying bias as being a cis male, for example. Like, what do I know about the female market, for example, right? Being a man, I can only know so much. So I might have, put together some market research that is completely biased or doesn't really ask it in the right manner. And so then I give you this data and you take it verbatim. It's the objective truth. Thierry has produced data. Like, yeah, cool. But because of that confidence gap, you don't critique my data. You don't then go, well, how was this put together? What was the sample size that you used for this, by the way? And then it echoes down. So then, like, when we're building like LLMs, for example, and all this all these models, we just take its knowledge verbatim, but it's like, okay, well, who actually coded this? Like, what is the underlying data set that is being trained against? Like, what is its understanding of the world as well? Like, what kind of parameters have we put in place here to set like guardrails for certain things? So like, and then you get the issue of like, I think it was it Google's one that was classifying black people as gorillas.
Oh yeah, I think I heard about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you get things like that, because once again there is that kind of confidence gap where data people do data things, and then people who aren't technically data people do not critique that thing and then use it in the wider world, and it causes a bunch of damage or misunderstanding about things. So yeah, I think it is that interdepartmental talking and sharing of data, and then it is the confidence to critique the data within the business. Where have we got this from? Why does it matter? Who's put this together? And what was the underlying data set? How was it trained? Yeah.
And I think that's the main point from that as well, is sometimes the natural tendency to just like assume data is correct is just because of, they see numbers. It's like, graphs and everything like that. So they just assume this is the case. But that's one thing I never even thought about myself, in the sense of when it comes to seeing data and reports, especially specifically from like, say, certain large sample sizes, looking at the biases in terms of like the person who put the data together. This data was made by someone who had pre-existing biases or pre-existing things that they just assumed, this is just okay to keep within the data. What's the best way to take out your biases? I know it can be a little bit tricky to kind of do that, but when you're looking at data or making data for a client, how can you go about making sure you put something together that considers that there might be biases and you don't get in your own way of putting that data together?
Yeah, so let's hypothesize that I'm putting together a piece of like a trend report on the supplement industry about a certain product. The way I've always seen of like trying to remove bias, like you never will. I think there's like 150 biases that you can have internally. So it's less about I'm going to remove them all, because I think the removal of them all also kind of kills the story to an extent, because then it has kind of like no direction and it speaks to nobody about nothing. But removing those that might be damaging or limiting to the strategy or insight or direction that you've set is about that democratization piece. So I'll get it in front of a bunch of people who don't look like me, right? So what I'm looking for there is I have a group of individuals who I call it like the pursuit of like diversity of thought, not diversity of like individuals. Like I want to show that piece of research to somebody who doesn't think like me, who doesn't look like me, probably isn't even in my department. And we peer review it. Ultimately, we kind of go, give it to that individual. Oh, Thierry, how did you collect this? Well, actually, it was based on the last 3 years buying data, and I'm trying to understand X, Y, and Z about this specific audience. All right, well, what was the sample size of that? Okay, cool. Well, have you removed seasonality out of that as well, just so that you can kind of normalize that data? Oh, right, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, cool. Do you want to also look at campaign periods during that time as well and try and normalize that data? Because obviously we've put spend behind this, etc. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I didn't consider that thing. And so then it allows you to kind of critique your own data or your own piece of research. And it's not that person is critiquing me. It's that we are critiquing that piece of work, and just having that peer review piece. I think that we skip it a lot of times, specifically in agency world, because we move so fast. I don't know who made us move that fast. I don't know whether we've all just gone, Do you know when someone starts walking really quickly in your group and you're like, and then after a while someone goes, why are we walking this fast?
They're just like, just started, yeah.
Yeah, it's like someone started sprinting and then we all just start sprinting. But because we work so fast and across so many different accounts, that time to critique or peer review has kind of fallen by the wayside. Hence why so many things slip through the net and then we kind of go, what was that?
Yeah, it can explain why some things just become a little bit, doesn't make sense when you look at the data. Just like, where's this coming from? Because look what you're saying before. Seasonality hasn't been removed. Certain peak periods haven't been removed. So yeah, it just makes the data very untrustworthy. But if the client's seeing it,
but I've produced a report that the client needs on the deadline that they need it, and here you are. Here is the final piece. And so, yeah, you end up putting forward a piece of work that you're maybe not confident in yourself, to be honest, as well. So.
Yeah. How would you tackle that? What's the bit? Because I understand like, agency life can be very, very hectic and busy. And if you're trying to say manage, like say reporting and everything, what's the best way to kind of do it if you're tight on resources? Are there certain things you might have to not go into as much detail as when trying to refine the data, or is it best to kind of automate certain things? What's the best way to go about it?
Yeah, so especially when it comes to reporting, the way I've kind of always done it was we would have an initial session with whoever the report is being produced for. And I just get an understanding of like, what do you care about? Like, what do you want to see? What matters? What does your boss ask you for? Like, what do you need to show to prove value of yourself, your team, your product or service as well? And then that allows us to build really quite a biased report, actually, because it's biased to you, your team, your successes are the things that kind of matter. So it's specifically biased to you. But then what we would then do as well is provide a section of the report or the ability to download, export, or have access to all background data towards that, right? So that allows somebody in a different team maybe to go, this number looks weird, but access that data straight away without having to then come to me and go, hey, Thierry, can I look at this and look at that, etc. And we found that quite useful because it allows those who are maybe just looking for top line stats to find the thing that they want and communicate success that way. But also it allows clients and us as individuals as well from an agency perspective to delve into any data that has led up to that certain metric and to understand and be able to cut it as well. Because I think sometimes we'll produce reports with the intention that the person that reads it isn't as technically savvy as we are. And then immediately that's a whole nother bias as well, right? So, and another stereotype. So just give them the ability to be able to look at that underlying data. If you're confident in it, then just put it there. Also, even if you're not as confident in it, like we literally have an entire page that is like assumptions that we've made, or like this data is skewed based on X, Y, and Z. It's sampled or it's modeled or whatever that might be, and just be honest with it. There's nothing to hide.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I like about that is when you said before, understanding from the client perspective what it is that they want. Because from that point, you can kind of tailor, like you've already said, just tailor the report towards them. Because I've noticed in the past whenever I've tried to, say, put together reports and they've not been as great, they've been from the fact that there was no underlying catch-up or pre-planning to put together the report so that they understand what they want. And from there, that's when, there can be a bit of miscommunication because they're seeing data where it's like, oh, like what you said before, they didn't remove seasonality or anything like that. So I think, that pre-planning is so important for sure.
Yeah, and you want to build, I always say with reports, like you want to build it so it's screenshotable. So like the person, especially if it's, so let's say I'm very much speaking from an agency side, you produce a report that you're going to give to your client, and ultimately that your client will have to report on whatever work they are doing with you to somebody. There'll be another stakeholder. And so then I want to make it screenshotable in the sense of, I want all of this to be seen and it'll be put into a deck somewhere. So then I'll get an understanding as well. I'll just ask them to even share their own reports as well. So when you report internally, what does your company say? Like, what does it ask of you? And I'll absorb that and I'll understand where we matter within that realm of that report. And so therefore it kind of helps me set a direction for what I'm putting together. Yeah. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm yet to see somebody do like all reporting correct. I don't think there is like the perfect report.
There's so many factors.
There's an incredible amount of factors. I just think it's one of those things where you continuously like pursue being a little bit incrementally better. You will never get, it's a journey, not the destination. The destination probably doesn't even exist. It's just complete iterations of like questioning yourself and going on that.
Yeah. Journey. I love that. And another thing that I really loved that you said was, going back to what you were saying before, working with different departments, if you're in a agency or in a team where at the moment it's a bit of a struggle trying to, get everyone together or to understand what each department is doing so you can put together a report or put together some data, what's the best way to begin starting that or building that culture in an agency if that's something you're trying to cultivate? Because it sounds like what you were doing before at the previous place that you worked at, you were quite good at that naturally by yourself. But if you're someone's in a team and they're struggling to do that, but they want to do that, what would you recommend is the best way for them to start going about that?
Yeah. So what you could do is, in fact, what we did at a previous agency I worked at was, so we had a time poor team. Your company's growing, so it's only getting worse in terms of like the fragmentation of data or the understanding of your product, service, or business. What we did was hold just knowledge shares. So these were sessions where almost like a company all hands, where you kind of talk about what you've done well, but my team's job wasn't to talk about what we've done well. It was to show the possibilities of what we could do within the business based on the knowledge and the data we have about, or understanding we have about our audience. A lot of times when I'd see all hands meetings or like all team meetings, for example, it's always like the people who have the biggest numbers. So the sales team will come in and go, yo, listen, we've made £500,000. What you been doing over there? And so then it's all like the kind of glory stuff. But what we were really kind of hot on was showing people what is actually possible. So we might come and go, have an entire session on like, we know the company's spending 10K a month on surveys, and we know for a fact that as senior stakeholders want to cut that down. So then as a team, we would come and showcase how you can get alternative data sources that maybe don't cost a bunch of money. So second and third party research, how to get the most out of your survey. So it wasn't training though. It wasn't like it was more like, here is the end product. Oh, by the way, did you realize it was actually built with this? And it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And it just allows people to, because whenever I do any training on data, the first word that people come out with when I say, oh, what do you think about data? They go, boring. So then if that is the case, then we actually go to the creative part with like the last portion and go, this thing here is really cool, right? Yeah. Well, this is how it was actually built. And you're like, oh, okay. So that thing is completely possible. Now, you don't have to wait for an all hands meeting, because sometimes they might happen once a quarter. And if you're moving once a quarter, you're behind.
Yeah,
like,
very.
You are slow. So it might just be that you create your own like lunch and learns that is specifically focused on your data team knowledge sharing with the wider departments. And then rope in senior stakeholders as well, from a perspective of, so like as a head of department, that was my job to be like, paid social head of, I need you to bring your team to this, and I need you to communicate. It's really important because of X, Y, and Z. Because yeah, you could hold a lunch and learn and you're just talking to yourself. It's just you talking to your own team. Because people are like, I don't see the value in this. I'm not turning up. So then you kind of rope in senior stakeholders and hold them accountable as well. To coming in, because it is ultimately important for everyone. And you can build that in. Once again, that's that framework, right? Why should I care? How have we got here? And so what do you want me to do about it?
Yeah, that's a useful framework for listeners, actually. Yeah. Really useful. Yeah. I think I might start implementing that myself.
Honestly, I do it all the time. Even when I'm pitching holidays to my wife, I'm like, listen, I've got this great idea. I think we should go here. Here's why you should care. Here's how it's come about. And so therefore we should book it.
Oh, that's awesome. You said before, obviously now your role is transitioned to more head of insights. Yeah. How was that transition? Because I know, I think I was speaking to Azim as well about it, being a head of department. Obviously, you kind of transition away from implementing to more so the strategy side of things. And I can imagine that cannot be easy, because you're kind of used to, doing the work, and you're now transitioning to the strategy side of things, and you're trusting other people to go about the implementation process. So how was that like for you, and how have you been finding it?
Yeah, so I think the hardest part for me in building a team, and then you being in that kind of position, was actually just letting go and not being a micromanager, because you develop a style of how you work and how things are done. And then once you start to build a team, you have to trust their style. They might follow a certain process, and just like I listened to Azim's part as well, because he is very much that person where, like, if there is a process of like 1, 2, 3, and 4, he might be like, well, I can just go 2 to 4, like I don't have to do the 3. But trusting that, yes, him cutting out that third step isn't going to undermine the underlying integrity of whatever it is that you're kind of doing, and giving him that creative responsibility and confidence and belief in that person. So that was the hardest bit. And letting those people be autonomous. Also letting people make mistakes, like that's terrifying, knowing that like this person is going to fall into this mousetrap even though I've told them about it. Sometimes the learning is in falling in the mousetrap. Do you know what I mean? And letting them do that. Yeah, touch the stove, man. You know it's hot once. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But allowing them to do that. And then for myself internally as well, it was so outside of that part, the biggest thing that no one trains you for, because in agency, there are the very rare amount of agencies who actually train you to be ahead of as you get there. So as in it's intentional. Most of us, if we're being very honest with ourselves, started off in junior roles, and then you got your promotion and it was kind of stacked underneath you. And then suddenly you got to a point where the company goes, you are really good at your job, so let's put someone underneath you. I have had no training whatsoever as to managing an individual. The only reason I have someone to manage is because I was good at that role. But excellence in a role does not mean that you are a decent people manager.
That's so true.
Right?
Yeah.
So hence why people go, man, I had the worst manager. And it's like, well, yeah, because you had a Cristiano Ronaldo who could play football, but it doesn't mean that he's a good person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's so true.
It doesn't mean he cares about your progression. Yeah. He understands how to build and cultivate a decent culture and an environment that helps people thrive and supports people and stuff like that. No, that person got that team because they were a superstar at the time. And actually, ironically, what they've just done there is taken their best player off and made them a coach. Like,
yeah. Wow, that's a good analogy. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's a really good analogy.
And it's like, well, that doesn't actually make any sense. Like, you need to train that person. So, and for myself as well, that's almost what happened. Like, I was decent at the role, and then you kind of get a team built underneath you. And it wasn't until I joined a certain agency where they were like, have you had any formal training? I was like, no, please give me some. And they took me through an entire training system. I was like, oh my, I could have been such a better people manager at the time. But then, yes, so then the other piece that I thought was really important is stakeholder management. So there are a lot of decisions that seem to happen within business where you're maybe not like the head of, or you're not privy to those conversations. You think, why does that team always get this? And why do we not get that? And it's ultimately, if I'm honest, your head of department or head of or manager's ability to communicate and tell a story to get whatever it is that you need, right? So it kind of played into my hand quite nicely, because I was always, as I say, intrigued around like human behavior, why people behave like this, and how do we tell stories that kind of win people over or evoke action. So then when it came to the piece where, okay, I need more budget for my team to do this, I was able to tell a compelling story enough to a senior stakeholder to unlock that. So then my team would get that budget for this thing. And when resources are limited, there's only a few pebbles here. There are 5 pebbles and there are 8 of you. Not everybody's going to walk away with something. So you it's almost like an elevator pitch constantly. It's like, well, why should you get the budget? Well, why should you get the resource? Why should your team get this thing? Thierry, why has someone in your team handed their notice in, but yet you're asking for X, Y, and Z? And now my job now was less the technical aspect of delivering the product, but now how do I tell a compelling enough story to unlock whatever resource or direction I need for my team, product, business, service, whatever that might be.
Well, it's also a masterclass and an explanation of why it's so important to have training, because honestly, like being a head off and just being a manager in general, like that's a completely different skill from the implementation. So like what you were saying before, like the Ronaldo analogy, like you could be really, really good at like SEO or paid or data analysis, but like being able to manage a team, that is something that you have to train up. And in agency life as well, kind of tied to the fast pacedness of things. It can be a little bit tricky to get that training, but I think it's so important, because that person who's now going to be managing a team, like they're going to be part of building a culture within that agency or company. So making sure that they have that training, it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is as well, like the right manager can unlock a skill set in individuals within their team that weren't obvious or prevalent prior to that thing. So like there are some people in my team where I'm like, I speak to that person once every 2 weeks, because I know that's just what they do. There are some people in my team who I met 9 a.m. every single morning to organize their day and get an understanding of what it is I want for them to deliver. There are some who I met, honestly, maybe even once a month, because I'm like, I don't need to micromanage you. I don't need to be around you in any way, sense, or form. There are some people who I had to galvanize and convince and win over and motivate into doing things for me. And so then this is where I'm kind of that formal training is absolutely fantastic, and hence why I cannot bang on enough about the ability to tell stories as a way to motivate people to do things, think a certain way, set a specific direction. And I just found that my language at the time, as I say, with my career, the language I used to do that was data. But yeah, get some formal training. Oh my, yeah, it's also it's just good for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you feel like you are supporting that individual, because people's lives are at stake at this times, like nowadays. Like when we're going through COVID, for example, there was a lot of like mental health strains and struggles because we've never worked in this way before.
Yeah, 100%.
Like at the time I was at Rise at 7. We went into lockdown with like 20 of us. We came out of lockdown with like 100 people in the agency. Like it's absolutely nuts, that growth trajectory. And so then, but I've never worked from home at that point. Teams and Slack weren't even really a thing because like we were sat on a table. So why would I need Teams and Slack?
It's such a new thing when you actually look back on it, like those Teams and everything and Zoom, but it was never really like a thing. It was
I didn't even know Zoom, mate. Before, the only thing I knew was Skype. That's how long ago.
yeah, that's true.
So for me, I went from Skype to Google Meet and I went, what is happening here? I've just like time traveled. And so then, there's a bunch of pressures happening on, for people. There are people who have families and children at home, so actually coming to work allowed a separation and a moment of peace and focus. But now you're in the thick of it, and your kids are running around the house, hanging off chandeliers, and then I'm coming in going, yo, what's that piece of work? So real formal training can really impact people's lives and unlock some real talent.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And you previously touched on when you're explaining a story through the data. Has there ever been any, or there probably has been because the experience that you have is really extensive, but has there ever been like an example where you were showcasing data, utilizing data, and you got really good results from showcasing specific insights when, say, showcasing something to a stakeholder?
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that I really like and that kind of resonates with people when it comes to like showcasing a piece of research or data, over the last couple of years specifically, and I guess the people I'm kind of speaking to was like the trends-based pieces, like trends-based research. The reason I think that's really compelling is because businesses are always looking for like a competitive edge. Yeah. And so then if you have the ability to show them that I can help you predict maybe the next 6 months. So I'm not looking like, in 2 years' time, like long socks will be cool. No, like I'm looking like CMO's tenures have got shorter and shorter and shorter. Back in the day, you'd be a CMO for like 5, 6, 10 years or whatever that might be. And you're measured upon that. So you only ever really had to produce a report about performance every 1, 2, 3 years, whatever that might be. Now it's like quarter on quarter. Now you're producing reports on like, this is the quarterly performance of what I've done, kind of like you're really in the thick of it. So if you can help those individuals maybe foresee something they're not understanding, or they're not at the forefront of, or they're not quite able to grasp, I think that's been one of the coolest pieces of research or data-led pieces of work that I've done. It also allows you to work with a bunch of different tools too. So like, whether it be, from an SEO perspective, you're probably looking at like a keyword analysis type thing and looking at it kind of seasonally. Has this thing existed previously? What is the monthly search volume for that? But then what does that translate to in terms of actual human capital? Like, are people actually searching this? Then you go into market research to validate whether that is actually a thing. And you might even use other based like search trends, Google trends, all that kind of stuff to kind of get an understanding of like, is this thing growing? Is this thing actually real? And then you kind of validate that with some kind of market research. It allows you to build a completely different skill set and touch a lot of different tools and pieces of data. So I think that's been the coolest piece and the thing that I really love. So for example, there was a piece where a supplement brand came to us and said, we're launching 16 products in a couple of months. We do not have the money to put behind all 16 products. So what should we focus on? And that's really cool, because then they've given you, they believe in your style of thinking so much that, they're asking for your direction, your strategic direction in terms of what products they should take to market, which is super, super cool. And then that's where the trends piece comes in, where I'm like looking at supplement market, like, okay, well, what are the competitors doing? Who are the competitors? How are people consuming this product? Are people price sensitive, or do they actually care about value and quality, and is it taste that matters for these types of things? Do people even understand what this is? So like, would we have to spend a bunch of money educating people on what this supplement is versus entering a market with a supplement where the education has already occurred and maybe we are just a better quality product? Or actually our strategy and positioning here isn't being the cheapest or the best, it's being the most available. So we're just everywhere, for example. So there's a bunch, all of that is just questions that, that data gives me the pleasure of being able to answer or query or look under the stone.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's they had a lot of faith and trust in you to give you basically saying, it was
good fun.
Yeah, what should we launch? So that's
awesome.
Yeah,
it's a lot of good fun. So yeah, the trends-based analysis pieces are always fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And now moving on to Six Chillies.
Yeah.
Obviously you started that very recently.
Yes.
And obviously I've been following your journey as well on LinkedIn, so it's quite fun to be seeing that.
Yeah, it's good fun.
What inspired you to start Six Chillies, to co-found it, and what gap in the market did you see that made you want to start Six Chillies?
Yeah, so me and my co-founder George, we kind of came to the same realization around like we enjoyed telling stories with data. So whether that be, hey, this product is really cool, we should build this thing, or here is a trend piece, or here is how your business is performing based on business analytics, or a plethora of different things in terms of using data, distilling it down to set a direction or action or an impetus to do something. But then what we had quickly realized that is over time, once again, we've been told to collect data, and data will be the most objective truth that we have, and we stockpiled it. And then we got to a point where we're overwhelmed and we're like, oh my God, what do I actually pick up and put down? And then AI came along, and we thought, oh, thank God, this is going to help, right? This is gonna level the playing field, and it kind of did to an extent. But actually, I think it kind of widened the gap, because now what it created was anyone who had the bravery to maybe use raw data sets within an LLM model and get any type of hallucinations or errors was like touching the stove and burning yourself and going, well, I'm not going to do that again. And so then that gap actually widened a little bit. For some particular individuals. So then hence why our positioning is very much like we understand the technical aspects of data. We understand as well the strategy, direction, or storytelling need from the people on the kind of other side. And so then our job is to kind of sit in the middle and once again be data translators and help kind of bridge those two individuals. Now, it's not to say that like one person has to sit on one side and one person has to sit on the other side. No, that's just the kind of trend we've seen. And our job is to give both individuals the confidence to cross that bridge at any given time that they can or want to. And so, yeah, data-led storytelling is then where we've kind of, we've sat. So we work with a bunch of, so like we did a piece of work with a big kids TV program. And we came in and there was like 20 of the smartest engineers I've ever seen in my life. I was like, these people are smart. But we were brought in by the CMO, and ultimately the pain was there is like, we have extreme visibility of everything, but I still have choice paralysis as to what should I do about it and why, like, where should I go and why does that matter? Yeah,
it's like a weird conundrum, isn't it? Because whenever I think about like, there's so much data now, especially if you're in a company, you can see anything that you want. It's still, it's hard to explain, but I understand it in terms of like you have all these stuff that you can access, but you don't know what to choose. It's like, why do you think that is like that?
Well, I think back in the day, we had the ability to pre-GDPR and
true,
privacy.
Yeah.
We had the ability to be able to connect your behavior across an entire journey, right? And then our kind of rightfully so, certain privacy measures came in part, whether it's kind of cookies and all kinds of stuff came apart. And then what's happened then is that our data has become extremely fragmented. So I know something about you in this specific moment on this specific platform at any given time. I have no idea what you've done on the other one. There are some clever engineering pieces that you can kind of do to get around it, but really you still can't really like string it together. Or connect the dots as you could. So then there is like, there's almost like immediate blind spots sometimes where you're like, I have no idea what my audience does in this part. I'm not quite sure. I know where they are here from like an awareness perspective. But when we hit consideration, I haven't got a clue what's going on there. And it's like bits of fragmented. Hence why I was talking about like teams coming together who SEO, organic social, SEO, PR, CRO, etc. All these individuals come together, and then that knowledge sharing can actually help bridge a lot of those gaps. But yeah, privacy has done it's done a great job for individuals and consumers, but for marketers, it's created complete black holes. Like
massively.
Like I bought my car recently. Such a middle class statement. I bought my car recently. Just based on the recommendation of ChatGPT. This is nuts, right? Hear me out. I'm always like, I said, I'm always a person to like try the thing that no one else wants to try, right? Hear me out. So I was like, I'm in the market for a new car. And then I thought about the research required to buy a new car, right? Because it's a big purchase, right? So the higher the price, typically the more time you're going to spend kind of considering your purchase, right? And so then I was like, well, I could go down the traditional route, read a couple of blogs, watch some YouTube videos, maybe speak to some people, look at some reviews, maybe even speak to a dealership. All of that is individually kind of trackable, right? So form fails, watch time in terms of YouTube. I might have read some blogs on some things. Okay, so you can kind of see, you're like, this guy's coming, right? Like he's on the journey. We're not quite sure how long, but maybe it'll take him 6 months, but he's on the journey. Whereas I just went straight to ChatGPT. I gave it my needs, wants, and budget, and then I said, okay, I've owned these types of vehicles previously. In the next 2 or 3 years, this is what my life will look like. So based on that, what would you recommend? And it recommended 3 vehicles. And I went, I don't want that one. Okay, cool. Don't really want that one. Right, I think this one is good. I then said, okay, well, like what kind of budget should I be looking for, et cetera, et cetera. And then the first time anyone in that journey saw me was I landed on the dealership's page and bought the car.
And I've no.
So then the dealer was like, what? He's like, oh, do you want to come down and see it? I was like, no, I don't need to come down and see it. Just send me can you send me a video of the vehicle just so I can have it for, to understand like the quality of the vehicle and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, yeah. He did like a video around and it was like, is that all right? I was like, yeah, cool, I'll take it. I'd never seen the vehicle on the road. I'd never been in it. I didn't watch a YouTube video about it or consume it. Didn't read any reviews or anything like that. I just took it verbatim for what it kind of recommended. Even going to collect the vehicle, it was like, oh, it was like, how would you like to get this to you? Because it was actually down in London. And I was like, well, what do you think the most cost-effective way is considering where I live? And it was like, well, actually, if you took a train, it's going to cost you X amount. Or you could just put it on the back of a trailer and it'd be delivered to you in 3 days. And I was like, cool, back of a trailer it is. Like, all of that, I never left ChatGPT. So from a perspective of that dealership, I looked like nuts.
Yeah, they're just
I just kind of went, that one, please.
Yeah, that's insane. And like from a marketing perspective, say if they had a marketing person there.
Yeah, they'll be like, I don't know what happened. Like, how did this person get hit? No idea. Have we ever interacted with him? No. Has he ever come to our site and read any content, filled in a form, spoke to anybody? No. Yeah. We just got a request to deliver the vehicle.
Yeah, and I think that's where over time, it's going to become a little bit more trickier, I suppose, for marketers to kind of keep track of that journey. I mean, you never know if there's any analytic stuff associated with ChatGPT that might come down the line.
Yeah,
you never know,
yeah. To be fair, there is a lot. I've seen a bunch of people do all kinds of stuff, query fan out stuff, all like the clever stuff where they're trying to understand and link the two things together. I mean, hopefully with what ChatGPT is doing with the with kind of shopping and recommendation and things like that, and the fact that we're running ads means data at least. So then at least we can make some sort of prediction or connection. But yeah, at the moment, blind spots all over the shop.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You touched on AI, and I wanted to ask you about this because I was speaking to Lucia Dello from Dello Insights previously, and I was asking her about how she saw data analysis with the future of AI and ChatGPT, and obviously, like you touched on things like hallucinations as like a point of caution. But from your perspective, how do you see AI coming into the mix? And obviously it's already in the mix at the moment, but just in the future when it comes to data analysis?
Yeah, I think I have two pretty decent opinions on it, to be honest. For me, it's trust and taste. So trust from a perspective of we're already in the thick of it with AI. So whether it's understanding that it has certain hallucinations, it has bias based on the underlying data set, who has even coded certain things, like it's a reflection of the person that's kind of built it almost, right? Just like anything. And so then we're already in the realm now where trust is a massive factor when it comes to a data perspective, when AI is also within the conversation. Now, for example, I know the digital PR space is going through it at the moment with like fake experts and fake comments and things like that, right? So AI's spawned this type of behavior. And so then it's got to a point where I think a specific media publication has said we are not taking any press releases that isn't from this approved list of like agencies, for example. And so then trust is already is like crumbling certain ways of working or institutions or campaigns. And so, yeah, it's only going to kind of get worse. Even from a content perspective, we no longer trust what we see. So you watch a video and you be like, I don't know if that's real, man. Like my mum was sent me a video. I'm like, Mum, you do realize that's AI? And she's like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's so crazy because like I was saying before, I saw this Instagram profile of somebody who just traveled.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a real person and she had loads of likes, and I only found out it was like an AI person.
Yeah, an AI influencer,
so,
right? So like it's got so good so fast. Hockey puck, man, in terms of the way hockey puck stick, even the way that kind of it develops and things like that. So trust will always be a thing when it comes to that, and especially with people now playing with like synthetic data and all kinds of stuff like that, like synthetic market research, where ultimately an LLM tries to operate as a certain persona of an audience that you've given it, and then you query it for certain data. There's a massive trust issue there. I don't know how we get around that. I'm not too sure at the moment, but I just know it's a glaring problem at the moment, and something that I kind of my clients kind of ask me about and ask my opinion on. The second thing I think with AI is generally, not even just within the data world, is taste. So I was doing a bit of work with an app that works on recommending. So it's like a digital wardrobe, right? So based on what you own within your wardrobe, it will recommend certain pieces. So, hey, this outfit is well put together. Have you thought about some stonewashed jeans that will go with that? It matches your style. It matches everything within your wardrobe. It is available within these stores, X, Y, and Z. And one of the fears was actually Google had launched the virtual try-on feature, where you can go onto like ASOS, for example, and put an image of yourself live generated, and you can try on that clothing digitally and see how it kind of fits with you. And they were kind of like, well, do we think this is going to encroach into the space that we are? Do you think they're going to absorb us? Like it's a fear of any kind of startup, like a big conglomerate kind of creating a thing overnight, and it kind of crushes you. And the thing I kind of said from the kind of AI perspective is like, at the moment, LLMs or just general models are built on an underlying data set and its understanding of that data set. And it's almost like regurgitating a different format. So I always say it like it's almost like a Rubik's Cube. So that all that bunch of data that's kind of gone into it, it kind of twists it and creates a different variation of its thinking or understanding.
New.
Yeah. So then with that regurgitation means that there is a lack of taste. So what I mean by that is with that digital wardrobe, for example, I kind of said, look, at the moment in time, yes, it has the ability to do that kind of recommendation piece, but within your product and services is taste. You work with stylists, you work with all these kind of smart individuals who understand what looks good, what is trending, what's going on, what do people think and feel. Because ultimately, from an AI perspective, it will go, oh, you're going to a wedding, I think you should wear a suit. Of course, yeah, you're going to a wedding, go to a suit. A stylist will say, I think you should wear a tux, because you look great in a tux, and I think your groomsmen and everyone else will look fantastic in a tux. Or actually, I think you should wear a double breast, because I think the structure of your body and your build, I think this works well, and it's, this kind of material and stuff is in trend. It has taste. Whereas I think that is what lacks at the moment from an AI perspective. Like even from a data side of stuff, like you could feed it an underlying data set, a raw data set, and ask its opinions on its insight. Absolutely. Well, ask it to surface insights. So once again, that's an observation. So it has a great way of observing, but the insight piece, that taste piece, it kind of lacks, because if I just went, okay, well, what's your opinion on this? not really an opinion it's doing. It's regurgitating what it thinks you would like to hear based on what it knows about you, itself, and the world around it that it's been given context to.
Yeah. And that's crazy as well, because I remember I think I saw a article that was talking about someone who tried using ChatGPT to financially forecast.
Oh yeah.
And it didn't turn out too well. I think they got sued.
Well,
because they tried using it for a client, which is a little bit,
Yeah.
That's really useful as well to kind of be aware of as well when trying to utilize AI.
But, and I think the tastemakers, that's where they win. So like we've every time a new feature comes out, it's like, oh my God, creatives are cooked. And I'm like, listen, creatives actually are going to be worth more. Like in the same way when Spotify came around, and now I have thousands of albums at the access of my phone. Look at the price of a vinyl now. Hundreds upon thousands, right? Because once again, it is like the creative and physical element is now worth kind of more because it takes more energy, it takes more thought, and it's cultivated and built by people. So you almost respect that energy. So I think that's what will happen with creatives as well, where they're kind of like, oh my God, like this thing could make a whole movie all at once. And it's like, yeah, but now your taste and what I think and know about you is even more important because I want it from you. I want it from your brain. And the value now is the person and their skill set and their creativity.
That authenticity.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can write a bunch of stuff now in 15 seconds. Great. But I would love to hear a story from you, your lived experience, what you've done. I'd like to understand. I'd like to see the spelling mistakes because that's funny because I know you make spelling mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Like it's inherently human to be able to do that. So yeah.
That's awesome. There's so many things we could chat about in AI. So many things that go down a rabbit hole for sure. I always like to ask guests towards the end of the episode if they are working on any exciting projects. So is there anything that you're working on, Thierry, that you'd like to share?
Yeah, building Six Chillies, man. Like, as I say, we operate as data translators. We sit in the middle of helping individuals who want to express something technically or want to tell stories in a galvanizing way, like that, really rallies people and gets emotion and action. As I say, we are super, super new at the moment, less than 6 months old, but it has been an absolute whirlwind. And it's been incredible how we've been kind of received by our community, people like yourself as well, and brands alike. So yeah, watch this space. Hopefully I come back in another time and I'm like, yo, I'm so glad I took that formal manager training. I got a whole heap of people I'm looking after at the moment. So yeah, it's really, really exciting. So yeah, check us out on LinkedIn, Six Chillies, and obviously sixchillies.com as well. We'll be sharing a bunch of content around, how to cross that bridge that I've kind of been talking about. Hints, tips, and all kinds of stuff. But if you've got any questions, just DM me. I love it when people DM me on LinkedIn. I love sharing knowledge. So I will, once again, if you lead with empathy, I will always reciprocate it.
No, that's awesome. No, thank you so much for that, Thierry.
No, thank you.
Guys, if you want to learn about all things data and analysis, you now know where to find Thierry. If you got a ton of value from this episode, be sure to like and follow the podcast. But until the next episode, I shall see you next time. See ya.